Hi, everybody. Sam here. Hope you're having a great day wherever you're at in the world today. I am so excited you're here to join us for a micro interview. I have Carolyn Bennett Sullivan with me today, and she is going to share a tip, thought, or piece of advice with you. But let me just welcome you first. If you are new to Safe Heart Connections, we are so glad you found us. We're an online community group for women who are working on learning to love ourselves more fully so that we can have the lives that we were meant to have. And if you've been around for a while, we are so glad you came back. If you're not already in the community, feel free to pop on in. The water is fine, and we would love to welcome you there. And you just go to safeheartconnections.com and click on through. So, Carolyn, we were just having a little bit of fun conversation talking about our superhero origin stories a little bit and got to know you a little bit. I'm really excited to have you share a thought, tip, or piece of advice today with our women, and then we'll have a little bit of conversation after you're done.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Sam. I am delighted to be here. So, I think my tip or advice, I would say, since I've lived for a while now, is to give yourself some grace. As women, I believe we all put a lot of pressure on ourselves to hit a certain standard, to be perfect, that we're supposed to look a certain way and be super successful and balance all these different areas of our life perfectly. And the truth is that we're human. And so sometimes when we don't do what we believe is measuring up to our potential, we start criticizing ourselves. And I think that's where we really need to give ourselves some grace. It, it's progress, it's not perfection. It's, you know, working to be that 1% better every day. And there's going to be days when we don't hit that. There's going to be times when we just, fail miserably, for lack of a better term, but we just have a really off day. And that's okay.
Yeah, that's
And
okay.
that's so okay. The important thing is to take care of yourself and to love yourself through that process.
Yeah, it's so good. The when you mentioned grace, my earbuds, like my ears, just lit up because I tell the women all the time, just give yourself the grace you so freely give everybody else.
Mhm.
And how if a friend came to you and said that one thing happened to them, how would you respond to them? Would you say, "Oh, you could have done better. You should have done this. You should have done that"? No, you would have encouraged them. You would say, "You know what? Sounds like you had a hard day. You know, sounds like you did as the best you could in that situation, right?"
Absolutely, absolutely. So there's a woman that I know locally who is what I consider a dynamo. She's successful business wise. She is smart and talented and a great mom. And she and I were having a conversation probably about a year ago. And she was talking about her children. She has young children, and she was talking about how she one day maybe she got a little short tempered with them, and she said, I just, you know, I realized I needed to give them grace. And I looked at her and I said, and you also need to give yourself some grace. And she was just like, oh, when she, and she was just like, thank you so much. I just so needed to hear that. And I said, you're like Superwoman, but you kind of give yourself some grace. You,
Yeah,
you
it's so true.
yeah,
And one another thing you you mentioned was talking about just the perfection. And perfection is an illusion. It's just not real. The ideal is not the goal. An ideal is set there to have something to work towards. But for most of us, just making another step towards that goal is going to just do that, like you said, 1% better, just a little bit more.
Mhm.
The term that I use is something I learned through one of the trainings I went to. It's called JND,
Mhm.
just noticeable differences. Do
Mhm.
just enough different to where you know you did something different. And if you continue to do that, instead of setting this whole goal where you're like, I want to be over here and I'm over here, and then you don't reach it, and you're frustrated. There's a book called The Gap in the Gain, which I absolutely love, that talks about that. Then you're able to focus on how far you came, these J and D moments, these 1% moments. And that's going to encourage you more to where then you can continue to give and do and grow and create the life you were meant to have.
Absolutely, Sam. And I think it's so often, we may compare ourselves or look at, well, this is where I want to be, and I'm not there yet. And we forget about how far we've come along, making those little steps, those daily action steps or weekly, and saying, wait a second, let me look at where I was a year
Mm,
ago. Man, I've really made some progress. And
yeah.
so it's remembering to to celebrate, the little wins. It's not always the big, massive
Yeah.
successes. It's like, hey, I got everything done on my to-do list today. That's a win.
Or I took a shower today.
Yeah,
I mean, for sometimes that's all you got, right? Right.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I'm in process right now. By the time this goes live, it will be done. It will be finished. I'm working on finishing a book that I'm
Mhm.
telling part of my story in. And I've done a lot of publishing, a lot of self-publishing, but most of those things have been journals and
Mhm.
where I'm creating space for other people to write. Well, in this one, I'm actually telling part of my story, and there will be a little bit of a workbook sense because I'm going to have like some reflection questions at the end of each one. But going through and writing this has made me really go back and look at how far I've come.
Right.
And one of the things that just keeps popping to my mind is, for so long before I started my healing, I could not have hard, real conversations at all. Like my kids are grown, they're 27 and 33 now. And my daughter, I remember she was a senior in high school, and I can see this in my mind's eye. She's like, Mom, I need to talk to you about this. And I'm like, I can't do that. And she looked at me and said, when can you? My 17-year-old was saying,
Right.
when? And now, fast forward to just a couple of months ago, my son and I were texting back and forth about something, making plans for the holidays. And he's like, yeah, I'm kind of disappointed in myself. I made a social faux pas. It's not a big deal and it's going to be okay, but I'm just kind of disappointed that I allowed something to happen. I'm like, well, do you want to message him back? Do you want to talk about it? And I'm like, do you want to talk about it?
Yeah.
I mean, and he's like, no, I'm good. But like, just, I get teary eyed just literally thinking
Right.
of that, to go from I cannot do this to being open. And if, yes, I want to help the world with the women I connect with, but if I can't help my own kids and be the person that I want to be for my family, it's not worth doing. So to be able to see that in real life, that's just like, it blew me away. So yeah,
Yeah.
being able to celebrate those things, and you don't see it in the moment. One of the ladies, if you're watching, this is a really important thing. That's why gratitude is what we focus on in the community, and being able to see the little things. And because I truly believe that gratitude is the powerhouse to create a life you love. And I think that, Carolyn, you hit the nail on the head of being able to celebrate those little moments. And sometimes you don't see them right away.
Right. Yeah, you don't realize, how much you've changed, how much you've, transformed yourself. And so you don't always see it, and until you have that aha moment like
Yeah.
you had,
Yeah.
the conversation with your son where you're like,
Yeah.
wow, I used to not be able to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, good. I have a feeling we could probably do this all day, but I
I,
know we
I
want to keep, I know you want to respect everyone's time and keep them a micro version. So I'll make sure that I include your links, whether they're listening or
Right.
watching, wherever they're watching this. If they want to get connected to you on social media, your website, any of the things, the ladies will be able to kind of click through to connect with you. Do you
Okay.
have any kind of closing thoughts before we wrap up today?
Well, you were talking about the power of gratitude, and I agree with you. I think gratitude is so vital for our happiness, our well-being, and for us to create the life that we desire and deserve. But I also, so I have this seven-step process, and the very last part of the process, it says, bless this mess.
Mhm.
And my closing thought is, being grateful for the challenges too. Being grateful for, like we were talking earlier, you got spared
I
because
did.
you did, right? And and so maybe when that was happening, you didn't feel that way. However, the beauty of hindsight is understanding those challenges serve a purpose for us.
Yeah.
And so when we're going through those difficult times, having the gratitude of, I know somehow this is going to serve me. Is this really hard? It's really challenging. And in those moments when you start to doubt and feel despair, to always have that gratitude to say, you know what, I'm going to come out from this and I'm going to come out stronger and I'm going to come out with a greater knowledge that's going to help propel me forward.
Yeah, that's so good. I'm actually working on crafting I'm going to be recording a video where I talk about how I learned that gratitude was the powerhouse of creating a life you love. And it came out of one of the most awful situations that I've gone through. And in that moment, I was able to see gratitude. And whenever I recognized I could see the gratitude in that hard, crappy situation, I'm like,
Mhm.
huh, if I can do it here, I know I can do it other places. So
Right.
stay tuned, ladies.
Yeah.
So, Carolyn, thank you so much. I know that we will stay connected. We I do a couple of different events throughout the year for Safe Heart Connections. When I'm looking for speakers, I'll reach out to you. And if
Okay.
I ever end up in North Carolina, because I have friends there still too, I would love for us to meet up and be able to have coffee and hang out or something.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I would love that,
All
Sam.
right. It was good to chat. I'll see you later.
Okay. Thank you.